Hi, everyone. Welcome to Poetry and Talk. Poetry and Talk is a new online interviewing platform for poets to share their poetry, background, and inspiration. Thank you so much for watching today. We have a new guest poet to introduce you to. You can stay connected with us on our Facebook page, Poetry and Talk. We have several poet interviews uploaded from the last couple of months, and we hope you've had a moment to check some of them out, and we hope you're drawing some inspiration and enjoying them as well. We have a new YouTube channel up, so you can find Poetry and Talk on YouTube. We appreciate your support. Please subscribe, like, and share. We invite poets, poet enthusiasts, and all those that like to support the arts to stay connected with us on social media. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Poetry and Talk, and I'd like to welcome our guest poet for today, Katharine Love. Welcome, Katharine.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Well, we have our customary opening on Poetry and Talk by having our guest poet read a poem. So if you'd like to do the honors for us, that would be great.
Yes, I will. So this is called This is the Place Where I Rest. Learning how to stop starving, then binging, then free falling has been a challenge for me, beginning with my arrival. Nobody there to soften my fall. I had no choice. I fell mouth first into food, and then cigarettes, and then booze, and then boys. Not yet understanding my own carnal appetites, always looking for faster and faster ways to stop feeding my pain, until one day I found myself standing on the train tracks, waiting for a train with faulty brakes to break me into 10 million little pieces so that I would finally feel no thing at all. Deciding at the very last moment that this was not the day to die. Marrying Robert was a sin against myself, but I, so desperate for a tribe of little me's and my family's acceptance, failed to hear my timorous voice that whispered softly, no, no, no. This time around, I will fall only when I trust enough to know, when I can safely release into her embrace, saying yes to kindness and no to harshness, breathing in, breathing out, embracing the all of me over and over and over again. There you go.
Thank you, Katharine. Thank you so much for sharing that. Share with us what's going on with that. What does this mean to you? What is this reflective of? If you could elaborate, please.
I will. The reason I picked that poem over any other is because it was emblematic of my healing journey. So I came from a very dysfunctional family. And one day at 14, I discovered that if I took a piece of Wonder Bread and roll it up into little balls and eat about 7 pieces, I would stop feeling anything. And that worked for me until I was 20. And then I discovered alcohol, and that was even better. And I just kept going. I was successful in my career, but on this underneath, I was not functioning well at all. And I knew that I was gay, but gay 40 years ago was not really a good thing. And so I hid it because I wanted my family to love me. And so I married a man who was not healthy. And I continued my journey until I couldn't anymore. And then one day I just made a decision to stop harming myself. And now I'm healed-ish. I'm healing. And so that is the poem that came from my healing journey.
Mm-hmm. Is this a recent poem? When did you write this, Katharine?
I wrote this last year, so recent-ish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it seems like you're reflecting on a lot of decisions that you made to not feel things, and that you weren't honoring, which most of us do, and until we realize we need to do it, honoring your authentic voice. Is that
Exactly.
correct? Mm-hmm.
That is correct. And I felt so much shame across the board because I was a psychotherapist dealing with primarily young women who have eating disorders. And yet I couldn't control mine. I knew how to help people because I had one, but so I was living an untrue, a false life. And my marriage was decades long until I decided to get healthy. And my practice has completely changed because now I can be authentic and across the board.
Mm-hmm. When you decided to become healthy, had you just had enough of everything? Was there a certain kind of breaking point?
You know, there was. I had just turned 60 and I was dealing with health issues, and I thought, on my birthday, I will make a decision because I can't control my health issues, but I can control harming my body. At first, it wasn't about losing weight or my authentic voice or anything. It was just a decision to not harm myself after decades of self-harm.
Mm-hmm. And yes, go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, I was interested, Katharine, some of your additional poetry through these decades, were you also writing on the same subjects as well to kind of help you
No.
heal? No, not
I was not. I had written a thesis for grad school, but other than that, I had not written at all until I retired. And so when I turned 60, I retired full time. And so then I was only practicing part-time because I really wanted to give myself to my healing. And that's when I started writing poetry as a way of healing, having never written poetry before.
So it just kind of spontaneously happened on your 60th birthday. You made a commitment to yourself. You wanted to be healed. And then you just happened to decide to have poetry be one of your avenues of healing?
Yes, exactly. As I would tell a client of mine, I took my own advice and I thought, this feels right. And it was, in the beginning, I was not very good, and then I got better. I'm still not great, but it's good. It's good. Mm-hmm. I'm happy with good.
Mm-hmm. And tell us, could you elaborate a little bit more, Katharine, with the healing and your poetry? How has it helped you in terms of healing? And if you could also get into your poetic process with writing as well.
Of course. I heard an interview a few years ago on CBC with Joan Didion, the writer. And Joan had said that she writes in order to figure out what she's feeling. And the interviewer was surprised and said, really? You really do this? And she said, yes. And I couldn't agree with her more. I started to write to understand what I was feeling. And the form of poetry, and because it has to be written in a in a certain way, helped me to contain my thoughts. And once I began, it was very freeing. I felt like it was healing me and freeing at the same time. And so I kept going. And now my poetry has, my latest poem has evolved. It's more, I feel more authentic and going a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm. When you first started to write your poetry, Katharine, and you started to immediately, it sounds like you found it healing, were you actually going through some of the things that you were writing about as you were writing it, or was it a completely different experience? What was that like for you?
I would say both at the same time. So there were things that I was going through that I could write about in real time, and also things that I hadn't processed from decades ago that I can bring into real time by writing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it, as in the poem I just read, I hadn't really talked about my journey through men and then women and then eating and wanting to die. Like I hadn't really put that in a form until that poem.
Mm-hmm. Katharine, we lost your video. If you could click the video back. There we go. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
So as I was saying, I didn't have a voice to speak about these deep wounds. And this, and poetry and reading other people's poetry really helped me. And I, especially Mary Oliver, and I cannot write like Mary Oliver, but Mary Oliver's poems helped me. And that's what brought me to writing my own poetry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, Katharine. So, so now you've been writing for a while, and you feel that your writing is a little bit more freer. You stated.
Yes, I think it's freer and it's better. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Blink, said that you need 10,000 hours of something to become good, and I don't have 10,000 hours, and I'm not good yet, but I'm better. So I see my evolution, and it feels more authentic, and it feels less trite, in my subjective opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what is the length of time from when you started to write poetry, Katharine, up till this current moment for this interview?
I would say it was about 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love it. What I've been doing recently, in addition, is I've been writing these daily haikus, just because I find it meditative, and I like the form, and I like the structure, and that starts off my writing poetry by first writing a haiku.
And you do that every day?
I do, as a meditation.
Right. That's beautiful. So then it's kind of like your meditation warm up, and then you kind of proceed into another poem.
Exactly, because that's, very structured and small, and it just gets me in that writing vein.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if I have enough and I keep going, I'm thinking of perhaps making it into a book, all the haikus together.
Mm-hmm. Specifically that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
haikus, and I love photography, and so I would pair it with photographs, haikus and photographs.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. That sounds very exciting.
Thank you. I'm quite excited by it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some are better than others, but I'm gonna do this for a year and see what happens at the end of the year with the haikus.
Mm-hmm. I have a question to ask also. In terms of your health, the past couple of years, through writing your poetry and other measures that you probably took as well, did you notice a change in your health as well, your physical health?
I do. I did and do. I had to, well, I chose to reinvent myself completely. So in my healing journey around food, I started to eat much more healthy. I started to walk 10,000 steps. And discipline. Discipline is important to me, and discipline is part of my healing journey. And so every day I sit for half an hour at least and try to write something, as again part of being disciplined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What else about your poetry that you haven't shared yet, Katharine, would you like to share with us?
I could read you my last poem if you would like.
Sure.
So this is called For Longing. I wake from a dream, you inside of me, mouth probing, fingers grabbing hold of a handful of your hair, pulling you down until you arrived at my core, deep inside the whole of me. I shudder and climax, the sheer force of my otherworld orgasm, waking me abruptly and unapologetically. Hungrily, still only half awake, I reach for you, my mind understanding what my body has so far refused to recognize, your absence in my bed. Without apparent provocation, loneliness covers my body like a weighted blanket, heavy and dark. I crouch down lower in my bed, arms crossed over my heart protectively, hoping to fend off the sharp sting of my reality. I've always thought I was too broken to fall in love, my fragile heart torn asunder so many times. I'm amazed I could feel anything at all. Then, by sheer happenstance, or led by divine intervention, I found you, and you found me. And shortly after, we began to get lost in each other. But once again, you've gone. Now I lay here, alone in my bed, mourning the dearth of tenderness, missing the sweetness of your smile, longing for you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. I love your sheer honesty and your candor. Now, is this passion poetry something that you're kind of exploring now? Have you been writing this?
Yes.
Tell us about
I have not. This is my first poem that I have written in that style. Mm-hmm. And I really like it. And it just feels a little bit scary and a little bit freeing at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you think you're probably going to be writing about this topic a little bit more and exploring it?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I haven't explored my sexuality before and written about that. But now I'm interested in doing this. And as older women over 50, we're not seen in in the world as sexual beings and as a lesbian over 60, even more. And I want to just bring that into the world that, you know, I and other older women can be sexual and old, both.
I love that. I love how you found your authentic voice and you're continuing to explore it. I really applaud this, and your raw honesty is really beautiful. We still have a few more moments. So is there anything else that you would like to share with us? And then if you could offer some closing comments, perhaps any advice, we'll leave that up to you.
Yes, I, in poetry, in life, what I'm trying to do is bring yielding and forgiveness. So across the board, that this is my healing path, and it's so difficult for me to bring forgiveness and yielding to my poetry because I want it to be excellent, and I understand what excellent is, and I'm not there yet. So to give myself permission to write anyway is huge for me, and I want to offer that up to anyone else who is listening. Give yourself permission to just bring the best you in this moment to the poetry, to your life. And that's what I want to share.
Thank you, Katharine. That's beautiful. Please let us know how we can stay connected with you.
You can find me on Facebook. I've been doing these pandemic poetry Fridays. My Facebook is under my full name, Katharine Angelina Love. You can find me on WordPress at thefatjewess.wordpress.com. And I have written a memoir about my journey. It's called Perfectly Flawed. And in order to get it published by Balboa Press, I had to use a pseudonym, which is Barrett Rose Baum. And you can buy that book on Amazon or anywhere books are sold.
Great. Katharine, thank you so much for being our guest poet. This was very inspiring, and you've overcome so much, and you're so open with it, and I so appreciate you sharing this with us and letting us kind of join in on your healing journey, and we wish you much success with all your endeavors. And so yes, absolutely, and so beautiful. Thank you so much, Katharine.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Katharine. We appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We appreciate your support. Again, you can stay connected with us on our Facebook page, Poetry and Talk, on YouTube, Poetry and Talk, and we'll talk soon on the next Poetry and Talk. Until then, stay well and be blessed. Thank you again, Katharine. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you soon.